a writer. I've written almost 40 books now. So it
Amazing.
surprises aspiring authors that it gets harder instead of easier because you're trying to keep it fresh. You want to do something new. You don't want the same character, the same, kind of plot. For aspiring authors, I think the hardest thing is continuing to believe in yourself. And while you're doing that, learn from your mistakes.
Mm.
That's a fine line. It's like you want to believe in yourself because if you don't, no one's going to. And keep writing, but you will face criticism.
Hmm.
You'll get rejections. So, how do you learn from what they say without losing faith
Mm.
and continuing to follow your dream?
So if they've not written anything at all, like honestly, Brant and I, not only are we authors, we also make our living as keynote speakers, and we do get friends of ours who want to write a book or they want to be a speaker. And the first thing they ask us is, I'd like to do what you do. How do you do that? And it's such a big, broad question, right? Let's say
Yes.
that nobody has written anything before, but they feel like maybe they have a book in them. Because the advice you just gave, I think that's awesome. But where would somebody start? And maybe specifically in your genre?
Okay, that's really great question. The where you start is with what you love. So if you love to read suspense and thrillers, that's a natural place to start. If you love romance or science fiction, but you say thrillers are what's selling, don't write a,
Mm.
don't do that. So write what you love. Um, Really inform yourself with what's going on in the market, read a lot, fill your head, do your homework, and then also start. It's like giving yourself, I said, give me a softball question, right? Give yourself one. So write around what you know. So, for example, my first book, which wasn't suspense, it was actually romance. I set it in the advertising world because my husband owns an advertising agency. So it was kind of like I already knew that world. So writing was new to me. Learning all that was new to me, but
Hmm.
I knew about that world.
Yeah.
So put some things in there that you already know, that you already have an interest in, to kind of give yourself a little jump start. It makes it easier.
It's awesome.
I'm curious. So we asked this earlier as well, and I think it would be awesome if everything we wrote was gold, right? Like, I mean, that would make
Yeah.
our lives so much easier.
Oh, it'd be
But
so nice.
right, but when
Oh, I'm dreaming now.
I guess we're curious as to number one, what's your process of reviewing what you've written? So do you write and go back the next day? Do you write an entire chapter and go back the next week? I'm curious how quickly you reflect back. And then secondly, when you realize that it's just not good, which I know for you is probably a rarity, but when you realize that what you've written is not great, what do you do? Like, what's the process that you go through to sort of fix what you think is missing?
What's broken, right? Well, it's great that you asked this question, and we're talking about the detective's daughter, because the detective's daughter, oh my gosh, I mean, I was writing that and I rewrote and rewrote and rewrote. And I actually ended up, you say you don't do anything wrong. The reason that book took me like 2.5 years to write, because I
Mm.
started out with the wrong main character, and I kept trying to write, I kept writing myself into a wall and stopping and trying to reevaluate. And then I just thought, all of a sudden, like 150, 200 pages in, I'm like, oh my God, this is the wrong hero.
Mm.
So that would mean throwing out months and months of work, and I had to do it. I just had to face that. um, Day to day, I mean, that's the big kind of dramatic thing. And I can even say in a minute how I know that it's at that place. But day to day, I guess it's how I'm feeling. I try not to go back too much. If you keep going back and keep going back before you move forward, you end up not ever having the forward. That's a problem. It can be a real problem. Um, I try to every day end on a place that kind of a leap off place for the next day. You know, some authors say stop in the middle of a sentence
I wouldn't be
that's
able
in the
to.
middle of a scene, you know, because you jump right in and you then you know your imagination and your right brain just take over. Um, but during the process of writing the book, there are days that you go back and read, or if like for me, like a holiday or a week off or something, when I come back, a lot of times I have to go way back to read, to get in that world and into
Yeah.
those characters' heads again, to really know what's going on. So I do a little bit of both. When the book's done, I do a complete read through, and then I usually do another complete read through. It's arduous. I guess that's one of the hard things. You asked me earlier, what are the hardest things about being a writer? It's, you know, recognizing when your own work sucks, you know, or what needs to, you
Right.
know, sometimes you have to eliminate your precious thing, you
Yeah.
know. So, and as to when, as a writer, you know that you've gone in a wrong direction, it's when you really hit that wall, when you're writing and writing, but you keep hitting the same wall, you have to ask yourself, why? Why am I hitting that wall? Because it's, you know, when you're in a book and in a zone, your right brain, your muse, whatever you want to call it, I mean, it's just rolling, right? It's
Yeah.
just rolling. And if you keep running into a wall, you know, it's because I usually think it's because I'm in the wrong point of view. I took a wrong turn somewhere that the plot doesn't go there. Sometimes it's the freaking character saying, no, that is not what I would do. You know, we as authors, we have this idea in our head of who our characters are and what they're going to do. But damn it, they have their own ideas. You know,
Yeah.
they really do, because they become real people who are talking to you. I actually once had a sub character try to take over her sister's book. And in my head, this sounds like I'm quite a maniac.
It does
That's
for
why
a
I drink a
second,
lot
but
of
it's
wine.
awesome.
We weren't going to say anything, Erica, but we might have to call somebody with
So
this.
Self-realization is a start. Yes.
So I actually said to this character, back off and I'll give you your own book next time. And that kind of just gave my muse, okay, she's going to give, you know, and I did. That character ended up in being like 4 other books. So, but it sounds a little cuckoo. And I think the writers out there in the audience and the authors and the wannabes, they know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And a bunch of them have dark gifts too. I'm just saying.
Agreed. We are, for those of you just joining us, we are here with Erica Spindler. And I guess I'm curious now from knowing that you there are 8 personalities within you
Yes.
that are fighting for power at all times. In all honesty, and I think this has got to be the artist side of you, of giving yourself the freedom to sort of detach yourself from the work and be able to have that sort of ability to channel a particular character or to just take a risk that you might not have thought possible. Do you think that comes from your artist background for that?
You know, I think it, yeah, you're probably right that it's part of that. It's that right brain, that overdeveloped right brain. You know, and in art, you take chances, you know, so yeah, I think it is. And that, you know, you have to separate work and life or you're a serial killer, and, you know, um, but you asked me earlier about, I think you asked me something, I can't, it jumped into my head and just jumped back out, but the whole idea of this idea of separating yourself from the dark place.
Yeah.
And I realized early on that I couldn't, like I was researching, I was doing all this, reading up on serial killers, and I was reading John Douglas's book, Mindhunter, which is so scary because it's real. These were real life cases. And it started I couldn't do it at night anymore because it was invading my sleep, and my mood was
imagine.
turning dark. Like the next day I wouldn't be myself. It was crazy. My son was like, I don't know, just the age where you would trust him to ride his bike down to his best friend's house, like two streets or 2 houses down. And he said, Mom, I'm going to ride my bike to Max's house. And I'm like, okay, but it's getting to be dusk, and that's when the serial killers roam the streets. So don't, you know. And it's like I caught myself saying that, and it was like because that's that stuff I was reading about. So I had to really chill and pull back and be judicious about, my research.
Mm.
Okay, you think I'm crazy?
No, well, one of us maybe does. We're not going to tell you who.
Not at all.
Actually, I see. I know we've got a couple minutes left, but in your background is very light, it's very airy. It kind of goes back to what we were asking before, and I'm going to jump on a process question that you were talking about before. With 40 books, do you feel like you could write anywhere? I'm sure. But do you now have a process where you only write in one location where you feel like you're really getting your best stuff? Does it have to be where maybe it needs to be darker and you need to get into that headspace, or you need it to be lighter? It's just more of a, I don't know, a juxtaposition as to the heavier content that you're writing about.
Yeah, and I think it's the opposite. You see, I'm all surrounded by windows, and I work on the porch and stuff like that. I really like to be out. I like to be out with people. I used to write a lot in a coffee house. I go to the Starbucks,
Mm-hmm.
the PJs or whatever, and write in the coffee house because I like to be around, just having the hustle bustle of people. Um, and actually, the opposite of wanting just one place to write it. It's almost like I feel caged. I need to get up and move around. Portable desk. I can go here. I can go there. I can go outside. I can go upstairs. I can go downstairs. I don't know. It's just, I guess that's part of keeping it fresh too.
Yeah. Yep. What are you working on next? I mean, can you share and give us a little bit of a sneak peek as to
Sure.
your upcoming series or your next book?
Yeah. Well, I'm writing a follow up to The Detective Daughter. I'm bringing Quinn Connors back. Really excited about it. And the coming book. I mean, it's the case that she faces does have a connection back to her dad again. And in this one, it's really cool. It's an incarcerated serial killer who calls on my detective, Quinn Connors, calls on her for help capturing a copycat that he believes someone is going to try to copycat his crimes. And he wants only her to work on it. So to find out who's doing it.
Amazing. Well, listen, we can't thank you enough for
No
those.
time.
Yeah. For those of you who are just joining us, we are with Erica Spindler. You can take your phone, you can shoot the QR code on the screen to pull up The Detective's Daughter within our app. Right swipe on that book, add it to your to be read list. Go buy a copy of that book. You can dive right in. Erica is going to be at a meet and greet at the Mystery Thriller Lounge at 1:30. So for those of you who would like to have a little chat with her, please join her at 1:30 at the Mystery Thriller Lounge. Erica, thank you so much for joining us at BookieCon 2022.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for coming. This is great. It's awesome.
It's fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay.
Yeah, you got it. Welcome back. Welcome back. Here we are. We are very excited to be continuing with BookieCon 2022. Our next guest isn't just an incredible author, but is also just a good friend, and we are incredibly thankful to have him here. Nathan Monk, please let's welcome Nathan to the BookieCon main stage. There he is.
Perfect. Father Nathan Monk
Yes.
in the house,
Yes.
in the Meta House.
Those of you who are unfamiliar with Nathan Monk, you know, he has got one of the most prolific social media engagements that I have ever seen. The guy gets more shares on the stuff that he does than I think anyone in human history. He's the unicorn, the exception to every marketing rule that has ever existed. And that's we are incredibly thankful to have you here, brother, with us. Thank you so much.
I'm excited to be here. This is a lot of fun. I've done a lot of stuff on the internet, as you just mentioned, and this is my first time in the metaverse. I was joking with a friend of mine yesterday that I'm really glad we're not doing it in VR because I'm afraid that my writer paranoia would kick in and I wouldn't know if I was in or out, and it would probably turn into a book or something.
Yes. Yes, there should be a book written about this. That would be awesome.
Right? No kidding. Well, we are, you know, we have two of your books in our library. Of course, we have All Saints Hotel and Cocktail Lounge,
Love
which has quickly shot up the charts. But now he has a brand new book called Russian Sleeper Cell. I guess the first question we have for you is, where do you find, let's say this, where do you generally find information? But then we've got to know where you found the inspiration for Russian Sleeper Cell.
So there were a couple of different things that happened. I had the concept for a spy novel for quite a while because, for those of you who don't know, I spent a lot of time in the nonprofit sector before I went into writing full time, and I had an experience while I was working at one of the shelters where I showed up and I was having this chat with one of the clients, and I thought we were having a normal conversation, and then sort of casually towards the end of our chat, he looks at me and he goes, "Well, I mean, you know, as someone who is constantly being followed by the CIA, I do have to ask, you know, that make sure that you're not with the CIA." And I was like,
Oh.
it just got really awkward very quickly because all of a sudden I realized we were not having a regular conversation. We were living in his world, in his mind. And when I got in the car and I was driving home, this was like 4 or 5 years ago, and I was driving home, and all of a sudden I thought, what if I'm the asshole? What if he's not lying? Like, what if this guy has been on the run from the CIA, and I'm just, because of my own experience in life and working in the shelter and working with a lot of people who are struggling, what if he's telling the truth? If he disappears, would I go looking for him? How deep down this rabbit hole would I travel with him? And so that idea kind of stuck with me forever. The second component did was when Russia invaded Ukraine back into February, beginning of March, because of my background with the Russian Orthodox Church, I received just, you know, literally hundreds of emails in the first couple of hours of folks asking me, you know, what is this all about? What am I missing? And so I realized that, you know, I had a wealth of information from my experience. I mean, I have a master's degree in theology from a Russian Orthodox seminary. There's a tremendous amount of education in Russian culture and history that went into into that. And so I began the process at the very beginning. I mean, the next day after Russia invaded Ukraine, I began working on a nonfiction piece to kind of explain Russian theology, history, uh, politics, and geopolitical relationships. And I was writing it in this very, sort of humorous uh, platform, kind of similar to my unholy shit column. And then I realized about 60,000 words into this nonfiction book, I went, I don't think anybody's going to read this thing. Like, it's funny, it's whatever, but how many people are like, oh, you know what I want to pick up when I'm at the airport is a history of Russian geopolitical relations, and even with everything that's going on, like
Right.
it's homework. And so here I am, 60,000 words into a book, months into writing this thing, and I go, no one's going to read this, so I ditched it and decided I was going to rewrite the entire thing as a novel using that concept that I originally had years ago, and so I abandoned project one, started on project two, write 90,000 words of this novel. So I wrote 150,000 words from March to August
Wow.
when the manuscript was sent off, which is my fastest turnaround for anything that I have ever written. And so that was sort of the honest was wanting to get information out to folks in a way that was engaging, that was entertaining, but would also help them really understand how we got to this point, and also many concerns that we should all have for what the future might hold if we don't handle this, problem of misinformation, disinformation that is so pervasive. And really, no matter where you sit on the political spectrum, I think that we should all collectively be able to agree that Vladimir Putin sucks, and so that should be a uniting
That
point.
should be the name of your next book, I think.
Right, and so this book was very interesting for me to write. It was difficult because when I left the priesthood 10 years ago, I did not think that I would be dusting off some of this stuff ever again. But it was really important to me to get some of this information out. And so that was sort of the beginning of how this journey began for me.
So this is probably then a great setup for this next question because, it sounds like at least to some degree from the inspiration, these are real life things that are happening to you. One, you don't know if you're talking to an actual, let's say, Russian agent and maybe being followed by the CIA, but obviously what's going on with real world events, and you sort of have a real connection to that. I think most people know when you look to the left of the stage, you've got that QR code where if they scan that, that'll go to your book, this particular book in Buki Call, and they can obviously swipe right. We'd love for people to do that. But I think the question would be, we always are asking, we interview the book as part of the profile in there. And one of the questions that we ask is, what do you spend a lot of time thinking about? And we're interested in what the book thinks about. So we're turning the tables a little bit, and I guess I would love to know what Nathan Monk thinks about on a regular basis, beyond maybe writing specifically. I'm sure that carries over, but what do you spend a lot of time thinking about?
For me, right now, I mean, not just as a author in the political genre, but just with everything that's going on from interpersonal relationships, I spend a lot of time thinking about the state of the world and where we're at and where we're going. I have three kids, 17, 11, and 8. And, the world is theirs next.
Mm-hmm.
And I really want to make sure that, it's kind of the old adage my dad used to teach me when we would go camping, you're supposed to leave it better than you found it. And I just don't think that we're there right now. I
Yeah.
don't think that we've left our campsite better than we found it. As a matter of fact, we left the fire burning and didn't give a shit if it caught the whole forest on fire.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that is really, I spend a lot of time ruminating on that and where we're at and how we can fix it. And I think that really shapes, in my writing, the types of stories that I want to tell. Uh, for me, writing got off the publishing industry in a lot of ways got off track. Um, in the late '90s, early 2000s, where we moved away from these books. I mean, Charles Dickens, for example, is one of the greatest political writers of his time, because everything that he was writing had this element to it of trying to tell the story of the plight of the average person and cause a reaction from society to make the world a better place. Uh, 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 F. Scott Fitzgerald's The Great Gatsby is another example of that, of trying to look inwardly at the society that we're creating, this world of massive wealth and destruction. And then all of a sudden, somewhere, we were only concerned about the entertainment side of the publishing industry. Is this story entertaining? Will it make a good movie?
Right.
Does it have the right level of action sequence? And wanting to push the envelope and ask these artistic questions of where we are as a society in many ways got lost. And so it's been very exciting to me to see not just how well my books have been received over the last few years, but also other authors who are beginning to kind of push those envelopes and kind of bring some of the art back into the process of the publishing industry, that we're not just, how do we create the next universe? How do we, tie ourselves as close to Marvel as we can? I want to be the next, 50 Shades of Grey or whatever. And I'm not knocking those books. I think art, the process of writing is supposed to elicit both of those reactions. We're supposed to be fully entertained.
Yeah.
But it's supposed to make us walk away asking a lot of questions.
Yeah.
And I hope that we do that. That's a long way of saying I don't know that I think about anything else other than writing at this point, because for me, everything circles back around to that sort of Alexander Hamilton kind of, I've only got so much time on this planet. What am I going to do with it?
Great answer.
So I'm curious at this next one, just from knowing you and knowing that, I mean, you had this career prior as a priest for years, but now, you spend some of your time, restoring religious relics of different kinds. I'm incredibly thankful to have one of the rosaries that you restored, which is just incredible. From the box to the rosary itself, it's just amazing.
I don't have one yet.
You do not.
No, it's fine.
But I do. And I guess I'm curious, what would you be doing if you weren't writing right now? Like, what career do you think you would have taken, knowing that this is sort of the world you've come from? Would it be art restoration? Would it be, I mean, what are some of those things you think you might be doing now if you weren't writing?
If I wasn't writing, I probably would have stayed in the nonprofit sector and continued on that path. And I still tinker in that world quite a lot behind the scenes, working with a number of nonprofits to help them, expand their reach and accomplish their goals. But how I sort of developed out of that world was twofold. One, it's a stressful job. I mean, it really is. And then the second component to that is I had this moment where I realized you can only reach so many people when you're right in the thick of it. And so that was sort of how I made that transition out, was because I wanted to, change hearts and minds in a way that was authentic and could help them understand. And so, even in my storytelling, I use very complicated characters. One of my first novel was a novel called The Miracle, which is about a guy who, you know, was an evangelical Pentecostal minister who has this horrific event happen in his life, loses his wife in his 30s, and then doesn't really know where he's going to go from here, and falls off the wagon, ends up in a really bad spot, and I made him very complicated. He's not a good guy, even though he's the main protagonist, and it was very important to me to show him continually struggling with battling with his demons. And one of the best reviews I ever got of that book was someone said, the book was amazing, but I hated Patrick Thackeray because he was such a horrible father. And I was like, this is wonderful, because I did exactly what I wanted to do. Yeah. I didn't want you to walk away and wrap him up in some pretty little bow, and now he's redeemed, he's better, and he never makes a bad decision again. And so, I think both hold my heart. I would have continued probably in that nonprofit world, continuing to focus on the issue of poverty and homelessness if I wasn't doing this, but this just ended up becoming the passion that has led me to here.
It's funny, you made a comment before about this particular character that you were writing in your first book might be the main protagonist, but man, is it fun to write. I don't want to even say the villain, it's the anti-hero, right? It's how really good books, good movies will give a character such complication that you could almost root for them on either side. And I think sometimes, show business, Hollywood maybe goes too far because they really are making some bad people the heroes. But, it is fun, I would guess, to write some of those. And you made a great point. We were talking about it earlier. You've got these great experiences from your personal life. As you move forward, as you write new books, new series, can you still draw on that personal things that have happened to you and you just make it a variation of a theme? Or do you now have to, as you were saying, you're constantly thinking about society. Do you have to step out of that? You haven't experienced it, but you can imagine what would read well and what would resonate with other readers.
Sure. I was actually having this conversation with another author who's here at BookieCon, a dear friend of mine, Sophie Strand. We were walking around. She's here in Woodstock as well right now, and
cool.
We were walking around the other day having this very conversation of, how important it is as an author to stay grounded and be present, because it's very easy when you get sucked into this world, right? And I think about the things that I've gotten to do just this very weekend. I've gotten to spend time with Amanda Palmer from the Dresden Dolls, Regina Spektor, Ani DeFranco, Holly Miranda, all these lovely, wonderful people, and yet I've been going and hiding at dive bars all weekend because I don't want to get sucked into that world where we, and none of these people have either. I mean, they are very engaged, and I don't ever want my stories to slowly evolve into, where I'm writing about writers sitting in cabins writing books. No offense, Stephen. But I don't ever want to get to that point that the stories are just circular of my weird experience, but really sharing the human story of what people are struggling with on the daily. And so finding ways to ground yourself. My family is very good at that for
Mm-hmm.
me. They are thoroughly unimpressed with my success as an author. So, if I need to ever be grounded, I go over and my mom will make me, clean out the shower drain or something like
Yeah.
that. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm not fucking special at all. So
Well, we've been doing what we call the favorites speed round here of looking at some of your favorites to give people a little window into the things that you truly love. So we're gonna do a couple of here. Do you have a favorite author?
ooh, favorite author. What genre, y'all? I would say probably, if I'm being very truly honest, not classy answer, C.S. Lewis is my all-time favorite author.
Fantastic. What about a favorite book?
Ooh, favorite book. I Am Legend is definitely
Interesting.
one that I have read multiple times through.
Okay.
Wow.
What about movies? You have a favorite movie or two?
Favorite, like, just I could sit and watch it over and over and over again, is the Indiana Jones movies. I just absolutely love those films. More on the artsy side would be Being John Malkovich is probably one of my all-time favorites.
Do you remember when the first time you saw Raiders of the Lost Ark and that face melted off? It was like the greatest special effects ever created. And you look at it today and it's like, this is embarrassing.
On the flip side, the second one was filmed at Gatorland in Kissimmee, where I was working, and it's the worst that you've ever seen. They were just throwing dummies inside the alligators. But yeah, that face melting was unbelievable.
It's funny how well that holds up. I just recently watched all of them with my kids, and I think Hollywood is really wasting a lot of money on special effects because they still just thought it was just as magical,
Right?
Yeah.
with all of the kitsch and all of the horrific special effects that you or I could do on our phones now.
Yes,
True.
And
Yes.
and they just loved them.
Do you have a favorite food that's your go-to?
So, favorite food, and this is the Celt in me, will always be a good steak and potatoes. But I will tell you, I went to this little French restaurant in Nashville the other day, and they had a honey brie with truffle oil fondue, and I swear to God, I could have just sat there and ate that until the end of time.
Wow.
That's insane.
Just that out of the bowl
No
with a
kidding.
spoon.
That's it.
Oh, dude, I was licking it by the end.
So I know you're a huge music fan as well. I'm curious to know favorite band or favorite song. You've got to have a few, I would guess.
Johnny Cash will remain one of my all-time favorite, individual artists. Which, interestingly enough, I peed next to Johnny Cash one time when I was 8 at church. I went to go use the restroom. I was 8 years old, and my dad goes, "Do you know who you just peed next to?" And I was like, "No." He's like, "Johnny Cash," and I was like, and he's like, "You will think that's really cool someday."
Yes.
No, I won't. And here I am now telling this story because I think it's so cool. So he was right.
That's a T-shirt
But,
right there, brother. I peed next to Johnny
right.
Cash.
Yes.
So that's my claim to fame. Is I peed next to Johnny Cash one time. So he is one of my absolute favorites. I've really gotten into Phoebe Bridgers recently.
Yeah.
She has an amazing song called "Funeral" that found me at a really important time, and I've loved her stuff.
What about favorite interviewer? I'm just
What a
kidding.
dick.
Yes.
In this case, or just of all time?
You don't have to answer it all. We're good. We've only probably got another minute or so, and I know you're going to be over doing a meet and greet in the Austin Fireplace. I know that starts at 2:00, so some people are probably going to start heading that way. Maybe one last point for you, and I hope people are scanning on that QR code and, again, looking at the book and swiping right on it. That would be fantastic. Nathan, what kind of advice would you have for anybody that is an aspiring writer, author that's sitting in the audience right now?
Do it. And I mean, just do it. All of your anxiety that you have about it, I felt those things. It's really easy, on this side of things with multiple best-selling books to pretend that it's easy. It isn't. But at the same time, just make that step. There is room for you here at this table.
Love that.
And so don't hold yourself back. Don't listen to that inner critic and that imposter syndrome that says that you shouldn't be here. I shouldn't be here. I was a homeless kid living with dyslexia, ADHD, and clinical depression. I am not supposed to be an author by the world standards, and I pushed past that, and here I am, 5 books deep into this thing with many more to come. And so whatever it is that's telling you that you can't, push it aside. Know that we all feel that way. Every single time someone stops me and says, I've read your book, I'm just as amazed and shocked by that every single day. So just do it, and it gets better with every book.
That's great.
It really does, and it gets easier with every book.
That's great.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, brother. You know how much we love and appreciate you here. For those of you who want to jump,
thank you. I'm so glad to be here.
Yeah, just make sure you take that QR code, swipe right on Russian Sleeper's Cell. An incredible book. If you want a little chance to talk further with Nathan, he will be at the Austin Fireplace at 2 p.m. Thank you so much for coming and joining us at BookieCon 2022, bud.
Thanks, y'all.
You bet. Take care.